Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a recommendations video. I don't do recommendations very often on my channel for multiple different reasons. One, I feel like recommendations videos have been so saturated recently that I haven't wanted to make them because I feel like every time I log into YouTube, there are a dozen more recommendations videos by other creators, and it feels like I don't need to make these videos, but I was reminded recently that not everyone watches everyone else and not everyone reads the same books. The other reason I don't do them is I always feel like I need to read like one more book. Or if I just read these books, then I can make the video. And I end up just doing that into perpetuity and like never end up making the video because I always think like, oh, that book is on my TBR, that would totally fit. I can just do another round of this recommendations. I don't need to have read all of the books in order to make a recommendations video. I'm trying to break those roadblocks of mine and actually start making the occasional recommendations video. So today's is one of my favorite things to find in books, and that is a submissive hero. I feel like the alpha hero thing is ridiculously popular. Everyone's all about it, but I personally prefer a submissive hero. I always find those heroes to just be so wonderful, and I love following them because they always care so much for their partner. I love them a lot. So I have a whole bunch of recommendations. Some of them are more popular than others. So let's just get right into it. First up is a really popular one that people already know, but that is Mercy by Sarah Kate. This is following the son of the hero in book one, and he is kind of villainized in the beginning of the book for good reason. He's kind of a total brat. But he ends up getting his romance in the fourth and final book. This is not only a submissive hero, but this is also an age gap romance. So he is falling in love with one of his father's best friends, who is also the owner of Salacious Players Club, which is a sex club. And our hero has never been into kink. He doesn't think it's for him. He doesn't understand. He finds it kind of off-putting, and he has a lot of judgments about what the kink community is. And he ends up discovering through a series of events that leads to a quiz that he's a submissive, and he ends up partnering up with our heroine to try and explore that side of him. And I really enjoyed it. I loved that the two main characters in here are not confident in their roles. Like, they have never done this before. They're really exploring this new thing together. And I just thought that was so good, especially given the power dynamic between her being this successful older businesswoman and him being a young, kind of uncertain guy who doesn't really have a whole lot of direction. And so them exploring that kink at the same time, I think, helped offset that power imbalance. I just had a really, really good time with this one. This is definitely one of my favorite ones of the series. I really enjoyed the redemption arc for this hero on top of the great submissive hero aspect. Next up is a two-part one for one of my favorite series, and that is the Necessary Evil series. Moonstruck by Onley James is hands down my favorite book of the entire series, and this one is following the oldest adoptive son, and he is a serial killer who hates killing and blood and doesn't want to do any of the dirty work, and he also wants to be taken care of. And he ends up having a romance with this guy who runs an auto body shop, who is also a vigilante killer. And the two of them together end up having this amazing romance. Atticus is the epitome of my like favorite puppy dog serial killer submissive hero, because he just wants somebody else to take care of him. He just wants to be told what to do and to live his life and do his research while everyone else does the stuff for him. And I love him so much. But Lunatic by Onley James is also a submissive hero. This one is following Archer, who is having a romance with Mac, and the two of them have been on this like secret mission for years. And everyone sees Archer as being this like loose cannon because he always has to put the image up that he is drinking a lot and a big partier and all of this stuff, when in reality it is to hide the fact that he's been doing the secret mission for years. And he is having a romance with his coworker. Archer is definitely the more submissive hero of the two of them, and Mac is the one that kind of like takes control in all of the situations, because Archer is at this point in his life where he is feeling like all of his stuff is out of control and he doesn't even know who he is anymore because he never gets to be himself. I really liked that dynamic where Mac is giving him the space and the privilege to be himself and figure out who that is, since he has been presenting this like fake persona for so long. And I just really liked their romance. These two are my favorites, probably because they are submissive heroes, and there's something about that. It just works for me every time. Then we have Stupid Cupid by Maeve Black. This is actually a Valentine's Day romance, and it is a sequel to her Christmas novella. I wouldn't say you needed to read these in any specific order, and this is obviously a monster romance, and the two of them actually met at like a play party a while ago, and they end up meeting again because their siblings end up falling in love in book one, and the two of them end up having a second chance romance. And I really, really enjoyed this one. This is very quirky and funny and out there, and it's not meant to be taken seriously, but I think that this series is just so much fun. And one of our heroes, our submissive hero, is also a very reluctant hero, and so as much as he feels drawn towards the other main character, he does not think that this is a good idea. Like I said, I think this is just a really fun dynamic. I think the series is fun for when you just want to be entertained. You don't need anything too angsty or too serious. This is definitely a good one to try out for that. Completely opposite direction, we have Deliver by Pam Godwin, which is very dark and very intense, and this is actually a captor-captive romance. We are following our heroine, who is part of this like sex trade organization. She was stolen herself, and now in order to survive, she is kind of in this role where she needs to help kidnap new people. And she ends up becoming obsessed with this college football player. She ends up kidnapping him, and the two of them end up having a romance. This is very intense. There is a lot of on-page sexual assault in here, so do know that going in. But he ends up learning a lot about being submissive through this entire situation. And it does continue into their own personal romance as well as into the following books. I think that this is one of the few dark romances that I have like legitimately loved. Don't like a lot of gratuitous violence and stuff in my books, especially on page, especially when it starts feeling like it's too much for the sake of being too much. But I thought this one was really well done, and I really liked their romance. And I think part of it for this one is that our heroine, while she feels like the captor, she is actually in her own captive situation as well, and the two of them are kind of trying to figure out how to get out of the situation. I thought it was really well done. And then the last one that I have physically is probably one of my favorites for this trope, I guess, and that is The Perfect Crimes of Marion Hayes by Kat Sebastian. I do believe that you need to read book one in order to read this one. I'm sure you could get away with it if you really only wanted to read this one, but the plot of this book, as well as the character relationships, really hinges on everything that happens in that first book. This one is following our two main characters. Our hero is a bi highwayman who is the best friend of the hero in book one, and our heroine is the possibly widowed duchess, and she is on the run, and she ends up recruiting our hero to help her escape. And the two of them end up on this traveling sort of mission, and they form a romance. And one of the things that I loved the most about this, not only is a submissive hero, but our heroine has some trauma relating to a physical relationship because of everything she went through with her absolutely terrible husband. And because of that, the two of them explore his submissive nature, and she does not like penetrative sex, but he does. I really, really liked that one. The last couple are ones that I don't have. First is Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert. I'm sure most people have read this one if you enjoy a submissive hero. This is a polyam romance. We are following Hades, who is the owner of the sex club, and he has this long-standing romance with our heroine, and he has her kidnap Hercules, and the three of them end up having this polyam romance together. Hercules is the epitome of a submissive hero. He is not only submissive to Hades, but to Meg as well, and I really loved the dynamic between the three of them. Meg and Hades' relationship needed Hercules, and I love when that happens in polyam romances where you can very clearly see how the relationship needs all three of them, and I thought that was done so well in this one. Then we have the If She Says Yes Duet by Tasha L. Harrison, and this is one that I read for my single moms vlog, and this is following our hero who has always had this crush on his best friend's mom. He finds himself able to act on that attraction, and they have an age gap romance. On top of that, our hero knows that he is a submissive, and one of my favorite things about this is their communication. Our heroine knows nothing about BDSM, and the two of them really work through what he needs and wants out of their physical romance, and I absolutely loved that aspect. I think the communication, especially in book 2, is some of the best I've ever read, especially surrounding BDSM. They go through this whole list of things that he's into and that she's into, and the things that they're willing to do and not do, and I thought it was fantastic. And then the last one that I'm going to recommend is actually a monster romance, and that is Sweet Vengeance by Viana Oniomo, and this is a revenge story. Our heroine, prior to the story, suffered a sexual assault from a coworker. At the start of this book, she summons a demon to help exact her revenge. So she wants the revenge on the hero, and she wants the demon's help getting away with it. And the two of them concoct a plan so that she is able to get her revenge, and along the way, they end up having a romance. But obviously, she is suffering a lot of trauma from this assault, and so she is having a hard time with a physical relationship. And so the hero lets her take control. And I thought the play with the power dynamic of her being the human and him being a powerful demon, and then giving her the power in their physical relationship was just a great way to balance that power dynamic. And I thought it was done so fantastically in this one. And plus, we always support women's wrongs. So that is it for this list. I do have a couple on my TBR as well that I am hoping to read really soon. So maybe I will have to do this video again in the future. Let me know if you have any other good recommendations for this theme or this trope. I would love to add even more to my TBR, since this is one of my favorite things to find in romances. So let me know if you know of any other good ones, if you've read any of these, if you've added them to your TBR, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.